This is No Operating Manual, a podcast about building healthcare companies when there's no one clear path and no operations manual. My guest today is Andrew Schutzbank. Andrew was employee number 3 at Iora Health, a role that began while doing his residency in internal medicine and primary care. He went on to help scale Iora before its acquisition by Amazon. He also balanced his duties at Iora while teaching at Harvard. He went on to be Chief Product Officer at Cricket Health through its acquisition by Fresenius, and from there he went on to Scan Health as an operating partner for their startup incubator. Today he runs Schutzworks, where he advises companies on their next best moves and who to fire. He also writes the Schutz blog on what's broken in healthcare, and he's built Schutzduck, an AI advisor trained on 15 years of his own thinking. His thesis through all of this is that the hardest problems in healthcare are the same problems just over and over again. Andrew, welcome to No Operating Manual.
Thank you, Aaron. Glad to be here.
So we're going to start off reading your bio and your background. My first question is really, do you sleep?
Yeah, a lot. Types of people, right? Either you need to sleep a lot or not at all. And I learned that I can just do things really quickly, and that always helped.
That's good, because all of that stuff was, just reading it was exhausting. You describe yourself as a physician turned product executive, but you started at Iora at the same time you were doing your residency and were there for 9 years. So it seems like you're kind of a double threat, or really a product person turned doctor at the same time. Can you tell me why you decided to be part of a startup as you were finishing up your medical education?
Sure. So there are many places this story starts, but the most pressing one is probably in the post office in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I was in medical school. I was on my way to an ER shift. We used to buy and sell medical textbooks during that time using Amazon Marketplace. It was like a decent way to make side money as a med student. Okay. And so I'd collect them for my friends and sell them and then give them little bits. So I was in the post office in scrubs, kind of late for my shift, and saw a person come out from the back of the post office. I was really excited, like, oh, cool, you can like take me in line and I can get through. And they locked eyes with me, and then they turned around and went right into the back. I was totally deflated. So flash forward to being, I think I was an intern at Beth Israel. I was in the emergency room, and a lesson you learn very quickly as an intern is if it's not your patient, don't get involved unless it's a code, right? Like if they're dying and you need to intervene, fine. But anything short of that is going to involve information and decision making you don't have, and it's like stepping in mud. And you get stuck there forever. So a patient called out from their room. It was non-trivial. I could tell, it was non-urgent. I could tell by looking at them. It was an emergency room. And I locked eyes with them. They locked eyes with me. I turned around and I went into another part of the hospital to avoid them. And I was like, oh shit, I've become the post office that I so dread. And I was like, right then and there, I was like, this is a service business. We don't treat it like one. We're very concerned with the mood. I don't even say well-being. I would say the mood of the practitioners. And we do a bad job managing that anyway. Right? If you think about how much of healthcare is based on like, don't want to anger or upset the doctors, it's sort of like sad actually. And so I went on a quest starting that day, probably starting before then, but like really solidified then that we need to figure out how to make the service business work properly for the people receiving the service who are not incidental to the care, which is what it feels like sometimes as a patient, right? Especially as you get into like the medical specialties, right? They were like diseases that happen to have people attached. And as a primary care doctor, I realized quickly that I wanted to take care of people that happen to have problems, or is the other way around. And so I just started talking to people. And I actually put up on the Schutz blog the email that I sent out to everyone, which is like a version of, here's why you're great. Here's why I'm great. Can you tell me your story? And everyone will take that meeting to tell their story to you for 30 minutes. Sure. Because who doesn't want to talk about their story? And just met people, and eventually met Rashika Fernandez-Poulet. And I realized he had the same mission, same experience. He was, 15 years ahead of me in his career. His children seemed to be well fed and his house seemed nice. So I knew we weren't going to starve doing this. That was important, right? It was right before I had kids. And so he's like, hey, I want to start this thing. You want to come with? And I was like, yeah, sounds good. Let's go. And that was it. So set out from day one to change the service world. And the truth is my role getting into product is somewhat, we'll kind of get a little more to that in a minute. Really what I am is a services person, but there's not a cool word for that. Like product's an expensive word. Services is an inexpensive word. You're thinking like call centers and like wait times and sort of different stuff. But I really am kind of the service product hybrid person.
So did you practice medicine beyond your residency? Like what is your medical practice now?
Yes. So I practiced through residency, and then with Iora, I was actually a hospitalist for a year. So I would see patients further in the do you sleep category. Every fourth Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, I was at Beth Israel seeing patients overnight. And there were many weeks. So then we opened our practice in Las Vegas as the first one. our medical director quit on the second day. She got lured back to her old job with the promise of more money. So she goes, okay, I need you to get your license and get an apartment and come out here. Like, okay. So I would literally fly the night flight out on Monday night to Vegas, see patients Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday or Thursday, red eye back, get in Friday morning, sleep, and then go to the hospital Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, and then go back to Vegas. At one point, I even bought a car in between red eye and hospital shift. Like that's duty once in that window. I'd argue a parking ticket once in that window. So that was like once a month. I was doing the basically 2 weeks in Vegas with a short stint in a hospital in Massachusetts. Okay. I saw patients through Iora basically through COVID. I had my third child's a newborn, and then COVID is when you either had to be all in or all out, sort of like one toe in at that point. And so I just sort of stopped seeing patients. And then when I went on to cricket, they didn't need me. So I haven't really seen patients since 2020 in any regular capacity.
Okay. You were employee number 3 at Iora, and you talk a little bit about that service model. Is that really where you feel like primary care wrong, and that's what you were trying to build at that point? Or what was it that you believed about primary care that turned out to be wrong once you were doing it?
So if you look at fee-for-service payment, the way it's done in the United States for healthcare, basically input. So the value of a service is based on its input costs, which is insane, right? So like the harder it is to do, the more expensive it is, the more you get paid for it, right? And so what are the input costs of me sitting in a room talking with somebody? It's my time, right? And like there's a notion of primary care, like you're going to do it anyway. Like you're already going to be at work. So why should we pay you for your time? So the way we pay for care means that if you do things that are really easy to describe and or have high input costs, you get paid a lot, and that's orthopedics. Derm gets paid relatively a lot in the same category because their work's easy to describe and they're not super expensive procedures, but you can do them super fast, right? And so those two are always the winners in fee for service. Primary care, we sit and talk to people and like cry with them, right? It's really hard to describe what we do. The value we do accrues over days and weeks and months and years, not kind of hours. And in America, the more paid you are, the more highly paid you are, the more valuable you are as a human being. Like believe it, like that is our culture, whether we like it or not. And so primary care internalizes the like you're worthless. There's an inherent worthlessness primary care. Now look at any other industry where who makes the most in a given company, and it's usually the top executives and the salespeople, right? Maybe there's a few individual contributor specialists, but for the most part, it's the people who have closest relationships either to outside money or to customers. Primary care are the salespeople and account managers of healthcare. That's what we do. We know you better than anybody else. We know what you want. We can't do everything for you, but we know the guy that can. We will get it done and we will make sure it happens. And so we're not paid like that, right? Those people are paid very well. And we're paid incorrectly. And so what ends up happening is you fall to the bottom of the stack. That kind of relationship-based work doesn't work when you're the bottom of the stack. You have to kind of have authority and leverage and be in charge. And so the idea was like, all right, well, let's fix payment and fix clinical models and put primary care back in that brain position that it fell out of over time with changes in the payment system that were, I think, accidental. I don't think anyone intended for primary care to fall to the wayside. It's just that all these new procedures and surgeries happened in the 60s and 70s that needed to get paid for different ways. And so, so it's like a historical error in the United States that we're working on correcting.
So how did Iora do that then? Like what did Iora do? How did they rethink that model?
Sure. So three ways. So the first thing is change the way you get paid, which is the most important. And there's a lot of, remember, Iora got started 2010, 2011, ACA came out around that time. And there was this belief that like we'll fix payment and we'll fix everything else. And the answer is only, it is necessary, but insufficient to fix payment. And as my career has repeatedly taught me, as soon as you solve the next huge problem you can see, when you finally get past it, you get introduced to much larger, much scarier problems you didn't even know existed before. So it's like every victory is defeat because you're like, oh no, now we've even more work to do. So ACA came out, but there was just energy in the air, how to change, how to get paid. What we worked on originally was just a per person per month fee that was double or triple what regular primary care took home on a fee for service basis. We eventually moved into Medicare Advantage risk over time as just another viable model. But we were always looking for ways that paid for some version of outcomes rather than effort. I had many arguments as, insurance folks would fall back into their old ways. And they're like, we want to know, like, how are you getting these outcomes? Like, so we'll make sure we can pay you appropriately. And I was like, why do you care? Right? If I'm doing magic and I have a voodoo doll and the voodoo doll gets everybody better, that's what you should care about. Like, if you're curious, that's fine. But if you're like worried that I'm not working hard enough to get these people healthy, that's insane. An insane way to go about paying for healthcare. Trust me, we're working hard enough, right? And so the idea was if you disconnect payment from activities directly, you can be creative and you can spend money in smart ways, like on transportation, on communication. And it also breaks down the other problem we have in healthcare, which is we confuse the mode of work with the work. So if you think about it, like people talk about visits and before the visit and after the visit and between the visit, like a visit's a meeting. No other industry is so concerned about the meeting, right? It's like, what were we there to meet about? What are we trying to do? Did we achieve our goals more broadly? But in healthcare, those things are so opaque and they're so idiosyncratic to each person that you don't know. So you're like, whatever, we had a visit and it was a good visit and took 20 minutes. And so pay me for that. And so we wanted to disconnect those things. And everything is based around visits. Billing, notes, coding, they're all visit based, which is insane because no other industry works that way anymore, right? Unless like massage, because you have to be there to get massaged. And as soon as we have AI virtual massages, we'll get them, right? And we will be disambiguated. So
You go for it.
yeah. So payment was first because it allowed for creativity. The second was get the right people in the room. Again, there's a certain beaten down, small thinking culture of primary care after years of neglect and abuse. And the question is like, where are all the brash, crazy innovators that want to try new things? And they were in other fields. They're like, no, bring them back. Like, because there were rewards in other fields that weren't in primary care. So we got to bring them back and get the new energy and a little bit of craziness. And then the third thing is start to build tools, technology, and process to support new care as you learn, right? And so we built our own EHR. The most valuable part of building our own EHR was not the EHR, which was the second most valuable part. The most valuable part was learning about agile software development and realizing that agile software development and really good primary care were really close to each other. And so we finally had this new way of working that we could start to apply to primary care. There was no other models, right? Because everything before that is basically industrial, which just doesn't work. Like we weren't manufacturing visits. That's the mistake everyone makes. Working with software engineers who are better at work than everybody else, learning about agile development was the number one benefit of building our own software. The number two benefit was the software that we built and all the control that we had accordingly. But those three things, it was better, different people, different payment, and different technology.
So that was, you said 2011, is that correct?
Yeah, that's when we got rolling.
So that was early value-based care, right? And even back then, like value-based care was this huge concept and everybody was moving that direction. It's now 2026. We're not there. Where do you think we've gone sideways on that conversation? And is it still that model that we need to get back to?
I think so. I think where we went sideways is something I learned as a fraternity president, which is the difference between liability and risk. And so insurers play the liability game, docs play a risk game. I'll explain it this way. Risk is the likelihood that a good or a bad thing happens. Liability is who's on the hook when it does. And so as docs, we're like, there's insurance risk and there's technical risk. And the antidote to insurance risk is huge pools of money so you can weather storms. And the antidote to technical risk is skill, right? And so as docs, we zoned in. We're like, we can do care better. We can reduce technical risk, which is the most modifiable and important part of risk in care because it's better care versus worse care. That's the point of healthcare, is to have better health and better care. So that's the part that should matter. Value-based care is mostly a conversation about liability and insurance risk, right? It's like, and so we dumb doctors were like, yeah, no, fine. We will reduce risk. So you can give us the liability. And like, that's much more complicated and nuanced than any of us understand or understood. And I don't know if you've ever seen either Goodfellas or Sopranos. They each have a scene which involves a bust out, which is where the mob would take over like a business establishment, a sporting goods store, or a restaurant, order a bunch of stuff on the credit and then sell it illegally. And then when they couldn't get any more credit, they'd burn the place to the ground. There's a safe argument that that's what all these risk contracts actually were, right? So you're an insurer and you offer to give risk to a payer, to a provider, and either they do well and you make money or they don't and they go bust, but you don't have to pay claims that year, right? They basically pay them for you. And so it takes some time to realize all the games that were being played simultaneously that had nothing to do with improving care for people, which is what we set out to do and what we should still be working on. It's the point. Everything else is secondary BS.
That is so prevalent right now in healthcare, where you're seeing exactly what you're talking about, where primary care continues to be, diminished, and health insurers they're scrambling with that risk. I guess, it's not the same as it was 15 years ago. And I guess the question is, how do we change that? How do you continue to change that mentality? How do you convince everybody that we won't be able to survive, if we won't have primary care anymore if we aren't able to figure this out?
I don't think you can change people's mind. Upton Sinclair, I think, said that never expect a man to know a thing when his livelihood depends on not knowing that thing. The answer is like, you got to compete. Right. That was the idea behind Iora Health. Rashiki used to say all the time, Southwest didn't make United a better airline by helping United. They kicked their butts. They made a better airline and people all of a sudden wanted to copy them. Right. And so we still need competitive alternatives in insurance, in care, that demonstrate a better way that people move to. And then the big beasts either convert or die out. Right. And that's basically what has to happen. I don't think there's a nice collegial way because they're making too much money on the wrong side of history. And then there are some policy changes, right? I think the policy change I'm most interested in is ICRA, don't know if you're familiar with that. Basically, because it's the first thing that I've seen is individual contribution health risk arrangement. It allows employers to give money to let employees buy Affordable Care Act insurance, which has a host of challenges and problems, but it's the only thing I've seen in my entire career that undoes the accidental coupling of employment and insurance in the commercial age population. So it may work, it may not. But the problem is you have the people who basically who run the country in theory, right? Like who operate the country, people in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s have health insurance that does not care about them by design and can't wait for them to just get sick somewhere else or on someone else's dime. And so it's a gigantic game of hot potato. Yeah. And so I think all of our opportunities to fix health in the United States come with fixing that. And ICHRA is the only thing I've seen that gives us a shot, right? Like I'm hopeful. And as I talk to the ICHRA people, they're still in the like, how do we get brokers to sell this? How do we get people their insurance cards phase? No one cares about care yet. But when they do, that's where I am keeping my sights because I think there'll be real opportunities there.
So totally off topic, not going to be included if you don't want it to be included. But what about Medicare for all? Is that in your back of your brain going, this decouples it from employment? How do we get this to work?
Possibly. Medicare for all is, I would say the concept, so ICHRA exists, Medicare for all doesn't. That's the first thing. The second one is, I don't know that Medicare is the exact right Medicare part than the for all part.
I think it's so healthcare for all, Medicare for all.
I still am a fan of competition, right? And so if you look at Germany, at Switzerland, basically what I want is insurance companies that see individuals as their customers that they're trying to retain over long periods of time. And so whatever mix of government and private money gets you that, where you have, because right now insurers in the commercial space are competing for companies and employers. They're not competing for individuals. And then in Medicare Advantage competes for people. Medicare Advantage is kind of interesting, right? Like the biggest problem with Medicare Advantage is almost everyone who's in it is toward the end of their health stock. And so it's hard to really change the direction of their health. Not for everybody, but I'd much rather have someone in a Medicare Advantage style plan at 20.
So after Iora, you moved to Cricket, which specializes in kidney care. Did specialization change your perspective on how you build?
A little bit. It's much easier. I don't know what these specialists are complaining about. It's so easy, right? Like, come on, guys. So
that's going to be my cut quote right there. I don't know what these specialists are complaining about.
Yeah. All right. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're building, and this is very relevant to a lot of the work I do now. Let's say you're trying to build any kind of information system for primary care. What information does a primary care doctor need to know about a patient? Everything, right? Nothing is irrelevant, or it can only be deemed irrelevant after the fact, not in advance. So withholding information from primary care is always inferior to exposing it to primary care. And then, well, what is everything? We don't actually know the sum total of all health information that exists on a given person. It's an unknown quantity. So you're always guessing, right? Like, what do I know? What holes are there in the data that are implied? Kidney care is like, we need 2 creatinines 90 days apart. Like, that's it? That's all you need? It's so easy. Like, what are you complaining about? So the knowledge is specialized, the drugs are specialized, but from a building perspective and from a system, a delivery system and an information architecture perspective, specializing makes sense. They're much easier, right? Because you have a finite number of things you need to know. And you also, absence of information in healthcare is the most damning thing. And so, like if I need creatinines, we don't have any, we need to get them. But in primary care, it's like, well, I don't know actually if we need a creatinine or not. Like, oh, we have one. That's interesting. Why did they get it? That's interesting too. And so the complexity is much higher. And I'm sure all my specialist friends will scream at me for this, but it's not even close. And part of the reason why I went to kidney care was to get sense of specialty. It is a very primary care-like specialty, right? It's not like it's an internal medicine subspecialty. It's not really surgical. It's not really that procedurally oriented. And these patients are with their doctors for ideally their whole life, right? So it's similar in nature. It was not a huge jump, right? And it's clear that the solution to a lot of kidney disease lies within primary care. But there are structural challenges there as well that kind of prevent anybody from caring about it, is what I learned with my time.
Now you're advising and you write a blog and you run Schutzduck, which I see as an AI mentorship tool. You've written that advisors specialize and have a thing. And you've said that you don't need one because you've seen the whole board. I think all the ways you advise can back up that claim, but what is it that people aren't seeing when they call you or use Schutzduck?
Yeah, this is, I struggle with marketing and positioning because like primary care, it would be much easier if I just told you the one thing I did and you could pay me to do it, but it's a lot of things. So I'm cursed for better or worse with being a lumper and that seeing that more things are similar than people realize. So the first thing, the single biggest problem I see across the board with every organization, person, everything that I look for is it's not clear they know what they want, and therefore they're doing too many things at once and they don't know what to stop. And so they're always task switching. There's like riddled with FOMO. They don't know exactly what they want or how to get there. And so you're just doing a lot at once, and that's fine. But as your organization grows and scales in a dependent way, that's more people you got to keep in the loop all the time. And so everything just starts to slow down and drag. And so the answer is like smaller, fractal, less at once. And so a lot of people, I always tell them the same thing, like, what if you just did one thing at a time? It's like I insulted their religion. Right? My answers tend to be very simple and straightforward. Applying them is not easy. And so most of what I end up doing is just trying to get people to state all their unstated assumptions so we can then figure out what's real and what's not and what we can test and what we can push on. And then that begins to sound a lot like therapy. And that's basically what it is, right? I'm really a company therapist.
Yeah, there you go. So tell me how you built Schutzduck.
Yeah, this is like the most fun I've ever had professionally, I think. It's like either taking care of patients in Las Vegas or Schutzduck are the most fun. It's hard to tell. Schutzduck was certainly more humane of an experience because I got to do it where I live. So I was driving to go skiing. See, before I started Schutzduck, I used to do a lot more fun stuff, and now I just work all the time. And I don't know who's making me do this, but
work and sleep.
Exactly. So I was on my way to go skiing with my buddy, and I got a call. It's actually from Rashika, and he left me a nice message that an article I'd written called "Welcome to the Amusement Park," which is like the way I think about care models, which is they're not linear, they're not journeys, they're more like an amusement park where you should like worry about each ride, but not the path through the park. People are going to do different things in different days, and you just got to roll with it. And he's like, hey, it's a great article. I really liked it. I think it's one of your best. And I appreciated that. I also know at the time he was starting what's now Liza Health, and he's looking for a care model again. And so it met his need. Then it occurred to me that Substack, which is where I published the Schutz blog, because it's a good platform for distribution, monetization, is a periodical. But what I'm really writing is more like a wiki or a knowledge base. And it gets published in the order I feel like I'm inspired to write. It has nothing to do with like relevant or current events, really. It's more like, look at my calendar last week. What did I talk about in those meetings? That's what the next Schutz blog is going to be. And so I wanted a way to get people to get into the material based on their problems, not the publication order. And so I came up with what became Schutzbot on Chatbase, which was just a librarian for the Schutz blog. Like you tell your problems, it tells you what articles to read. That's all it did. And people just kept trying to get advice out of it, like me. They're like, no, but tell me what to do. And so then I was like, all right, there's clearly some signal here. Again, I used Chatbase as an early prototype and worked with Claude, and then just built a full Schutzduck advice bot, loaded all my blogs in. And it took about 15 minutes from when I like created the agent to have my friends using it. And they're like, yep, sounds exactly like you. That's really cool. So the AI part of this was the easy part because a lot of other people who were really smart did a lot of work for a long time. And I've been writing for 15 years. Mm-hmm. So we combine those two things together, like I'd been preparing for this. All the rest of it has been me working with Claude to rebuild the thing myself off of Chatbase's infrastructure because it was just too fragile for the experience that I wanted. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of the hard stuff has been the website stuff, which is a commodity, not the AI stuff, which is magic, which is sort of interesting to me as someone who's run software teams before, but never was in the code. Now that I'm in the code, sort of, I still treat Claude like a engineer that bullshits me sometimes. And so I have to like double check on. That's basically the experience.
I think that's everybody's experience with Claude. When people are coming to Schutzduck, like what are they asking of you? And, are you able to answer all those questions? Like, is your AI prepared to answer some of these complex healthcare? Like, how has that been developed?
Sure. So what I've learned is, and I'm kind of trying to figure this out as I help people understand like all the offerings of Schutzworks. If you run a company and you're CEO, CMO, whatever, you probably want to talk to me. And so you end up talking to me and you hire me as an advisor. And then I try and convince you to talk to the duck. And what I've started doing is give me your opsiest or chief of staffiest person. I'll give you duck access. I'm going to give them duck access because you don't want them to have unlimited access to me because you'd go bankrupt. And it's been working. I had a meeting with one of my companies today and the VP of Ops had Schutzduck open as her fourth tab in Chrome, which is like, it was like her calendar, her Gmail, a document, and Schutzduck. And then I told her I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks. She goes, it's fine. I have the duck. And I was like, yes. Good. So individuals though, who were like, everyone comes to Schutzduck with basically the same first question, which is a version of like, how do I change my boss's mind? Like they're crazy, they're wrong, something's not going right. How do I convince them of something? And either it works. Then the next question is, should I get a new job? Then the next question is like, which of these jobs should I get? And help me negotiate those jobs. Then it's, I'm in the new job and now I have all these problems, help me solve them. So that's like the Schutzduck arc. I've
Same
noticed.
questions. How do I change my boss's mind over and over again?
Yes. And if you don't answer that question, you get a new job. Like that's what happens. And so it's really good at sharpening your thinking, testing your assumptions, the things that I like to do as well. The people who come to it and bounce right off are like, give me a list of Medicare Advantage plans. It's not a search engine. It's not connected to a search engine by design. I don't want it to lose its mind and have open internet access. I just started, there's a version of Schutzduck that can exist in Slack. That version can go to the internet because I figured there are people already in Slack. There's already like walls around what you'll ask and it won't go crazy. And I can see the response a little more public. So I'm experimenting with that. But so it's really good at help me convince people what assumptions am I missing? Like, what am I doing wrong here? Help me make this decision. Things like give me lists of things and facts, not so much. But you can give it context. So you can like drop in an RFP and tell it about your business and it'll help you write the RFP. Like that it now does. So if you give it context, it handles it very well. When it doesn't know what to do, it tells you that. And so John Slotkin, the neurosurgeon who runs Script Capital, he texted me. He's like, what will the duck tell me if I ask it how to do a microdiscectomy? And I was like, it will politely tell you to F off. And he's like, okay. And then it did. It was like, why are you asking a chatbot how to do a microdiscectomy? Are you okay? Do you need help? Like, so it does not BS. It tells you what it doesn't want to answer. It tells you what it can't answer. It'll kick you to me. It'll kick you back to other chatbots, whatever you need. It does not perseverate and try and keep you engaged with it.
It stays in its lane, what it's really there for, what an AI should be there for. So separately, how do you see AI fitting into clinical care?
So I am very excited. It's, if I say this out loud, I feel like this is going to come back to haunt me, but it's made me want to get back into practice because especially primary care, but a lot of medicine involves with dealing with millions of words per person, right? Like even our labs, which are numbers, are kind of words, right? Like your creatinine is high. That's a word. That's not a number, right? Numbers are, so it's so qualitative as opposed to quantitative. And a lot of what we have to do, and the reason why I frankly liked primary care and was kind of good at it is I can just hold a lot of my working memory at once. But that's what we do to our doctors. We make them load in a bunch of documents and conversation notes and visits and labs and then swirl it around in our logic and come up with a plan. And finally, for the first time in my career, we have software that's good at words and real words, not structured, no one writes like this words. And so I'm thrilled now that there are these word machines that are really great for exactly what we need, which is processing large amounts of context. And so you have the open evidence doximity thing, which is here's my patient information, search all of medical literature, give me an answer. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. You have the legal thing, which I don't like, which are hallucinating cases. When you put the technology against infinity, it makes stuff up. But when you put it against large finite sets, like a person's medical record, it's really good at finding patterns and tying things together that we just can't do because our mental working spaces are not large enough. Our monitors aren't big enough, our software's not big enough. And so it can find patterns that we can't see. And so I'm really excited for it as a technology to help answer what I think is the most important question, which is what's going to work for this person, which is currently answered through very expensive, very long randomized controlled trials, which are really important that just don't translate to an individual circumstance, right? Okay, yes, this drug works, but they don't have a car to get to the pharmacy. So the drug doesn't work. So I'm really excited for all the cognitive, all the creative, all the finding patterns that are otherwise invisible. And then also all of the task management stuff. Help me keep track of all the promises I made in a visit and capture them so that they actually get done, which at Iora, our big innovation was making a mutual task list that the team could share, which itself was based off of a 2-foot by 3-foot whiteboard, not attached to a wall in the Fenard ICU at Beth Israel, where the resident wrote down the work list for the whole list. So instead of us each having our own list that we couldn't see, there was one list and you just go up and cross it off. And that was a massive innovation. I was like, cool, we're going to build that into Chirp, which is Iora. And now you can build that and have AI monitor the list for you so people don't have to do it. So I am outrageously excited for the application of these technologies to just the management of words. They can do other things too, which is cooler and better, like people having AI with imaging, fine. But we have enough words for them to process that we've plenty of work to do there.
You've written about what you believe is wrong in healthcare, but what do you think is good about healthcare and healthcare startups right now?
Yes. Healthcare is the best people in it. It's not even close. Almost everyone in healthcare is trying their hardest to do something right for somebody else and make a living doing it. There are bad actors. There are parts of the system that look sociopathic, but it's nothing like almost any other industry, right? Like getting cheated, there's just a level of like decency of the humans involved and the capability of humans involved, which is staggering, which in some ways it's either speaks to the enormity of the problem that we're doing such a bad job or that there's things getting in the way because all these smart people should have come up a lot by now. So that's nice. The next part is, and this is what I like about healthcare, it's problem oriented. So like I got to see my favorite band, Guster, twice this week. They're in the entertainment industry. How do you know if someone's had enough fun? Should they have more fun? Is there too much fun? Like my brain doesn't work that way. Right? But in healthcare, it's like, oh, I can't walk and now I want to be able to walk. Sweet. I can help you with that. And I can know when I did a good job.
There's no NPS score on that concert.
They were 10 out of 10, both of them, but I'm a huge fan. As I explained to my 6-year-old who went with me to one of the shows, I first saw them when I was a year older than his older brother. And he like couldn't understand that like I could ever be 15. Right. So like that was what he couldn't understand. So the people are great. The innovation pace is relentless. The worthiness and the mission value is relentless. And there's a lot of magic in healthcare. It's just not reliable, repeatable, predictable magic, right? But you get to change people's lives for the better all the time. Now, healthcare startups, I think, come in two main varieties. Those who are focused on value capture first and those that are focused on value creation first. And the part I don't love is that those who focus on value capture tend to come out of plans, get a lot of commercial traction, are able to raise money pretty easily, not so great at building actual products and services people love. But the inverse, if you created value creation, you can't get paid for it. And so you end up getting bought by these other companies. It's sort of a bummer, right? That like because of the craziness, draconian nature of value capture in healthcare, the value creators end up working for the value capturers who just propagate the bad value distribution, reward distribution system. But all the value being created is really cool. The ways we can put together data and devices and imaging information and mood and just like let people stay in their own lives and achieve the kind of life and health they want is the really exciting part.
You've said that if we can fix healthcare, we can fix the world. 15 years in, or 15 years plus in, are you more or less optimistic than when you started?
I was less optimistic until GLP-1s and LLMs. So until that point, it was like, oh, we got beaten in value-based care by the people that know the game better. And like, I don't see a way out of this, right? Like we can't work harder, faster, better enough to win. Then you get a medicine that seems to do by itself like a quarter of what primary care was trying to do anyway. I'm on a GLP-1 myself and it has been staggering. I think I've lost 75 pounds since September.
Dang.
My whole life has changed for the better.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's magic, right? So like it works in ways unseen. So it's a very exciting medicine. It's the first we've had in a long time that is this broadly applicable and exciting. There will be misapplications. There'll be places it doesn't live up to the hype. It doesn't matter, right? It does a lot of great things. And then again, as I said earlier with LLMs, we finally have something to help us with all the damn words. I realize now what we were trying to build at Iora deterministically. In other words, like let's map out what's supposed to happen on whiteboards and then capture that in software. We could have gone to the heat death of the universe and never figured it out. And LLMs can do it in an hour because it requires judgment, right? In ways that you just couldn't simulate deterministically before. So like there's new hope for what we can try to achieve with all the chaos we're trying to manage. So I'm once again optimistic because I stuck around long enough to, which we were warned about in Star Trek, I think it was Star Trek 6, where Bones lets his dad, like helps his dad die just before, no, it's 5, Star Trek 5, right before a cure for the disease he was dying from was invented. Right. And so as Duncan Reese likes to say, you got to stay in the game long enough to get back on offense. And so that's what this is.
You're still here. You're still doing it. The GLP-1s is really interesting. And it's exciting that you think it's exciting. It makes you optimistic. I'm curious about how much has impacted the cost. I understand like point in time cost, right? Like long-term care cost can be probably, we'll see more of that in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Does that concern you at all, this upfront cost to get to this long-term cost? Or do you think it's going to be something that's going to have to be put into the cost equation regardless?
Yeah, I guess because it's not my job I don't care about the cost. If we're worried that an intervention that can solve a problem we've been spending trillions of dollars to approach can solve it for hundreds of millions or billions of dollars and improves people's quality and quantity of life, that's like, what else are we paying for? It's the point, right? So I think the cost will smooth out over time. I think people have to stay on the medicines. I think the challenge is more insidious, which is every cost in healthcare is someone else's revenue and no one likes their revenue being cut. And so it's this idea of we only have so much money to distribute for a given period of time. Okay. But as a population over time, I think these drugs are going to have a massive positive impact on not just healthcare costs, but on society, community contribution, parenting longevity. Like so many things get better when people are healthy and happier and more active in their lives. So like, okay, yes, it's going to suck for a couple of years. It's the same thing with Hep C cure being too expensive. Then you're wrong, right? Like we're just wrong. If curing a disease instead of treating it forever is too expensive, just treat it and fix it and move on.
Wrapping this up, what advice would you give first-time founding team at this point in time in 2026?
I think every founder comes in one of two molds. They'd either rather work on the solution and tinker with the product or spend more time with customers. Whatever your inclination is as a startup founder, as soon as you start hitting resistance, you must stop doing the thing you prefer and do the other one. Like I could play with Schutzduck.
Why is that?
Basically, it's the feedback loop, right? So when you start building, it's fun because you're only building for yourself. And so you can give yourself feedback. And then at a certain point, you run out of ideas. Then you show it to someone and they destroy your dreams and tell you your baby's ugly and you got to start over. And if you can survive that, you can sort of build to external feedback. And so what you realize is there's these cycles of like building product, talking to customers, building product, talking to customers. And if you spend too long in building product, you will again start building for yourself and build something nobody wants. And you'll also miss easy ways to make money because you're building for your standard and not the customer standard, right? Like, customers are like, I'm dying every day with this problem. Can you make it 5% better? I'll pay you. You're like, no, it has to be perfect or I won't sell it. Right. Yeah. And then on the flip side, there are people that love being out in the marketplace and you hear about them all the time. They tend to raise a lot of money. And I think that all things being equal, you're better off spending time with customers and building products is what the world seems to have told us. But at some point, you actually have to keep all the promises you've made. Maybe. I don't know. And so that's why like stop going out and talking to customers and come up with new pivots and new ideas for the business and actually made good on some of the ones that people already want to pay you for. I'm definitely slightly inclined to want to build more than spend time with customers.
Sounds like what you're saying is you got to balance the two of those. Balancing.
And the challenge is when people hit trouble, they want to play to their strength. And the idea is that you've already kind of exhausted your strength. Like you've built enough product. That can't be the answer. Stop doing it. Go and talk to customers or vice versa.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for your time and your thoughtful responses. I am looking forward to sharing this interview with the world, the entire world.
I'm so glad to be here and thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to No Operating Manual. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please leave a rating and a review, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. No Operating Manual is hosted and produced by Aaron O'Brien of Chemistry, a healthcare marketing and communication advisory. Visit our website at choosechemistry.com.